I grew up hearing African folk tales that weren't meant to scare people, but to remind us of things we forget when life moves too fast. This story is a fictional reflection on tradition, memory, and what can happen when progress leaves gratitude behind. It's about what we lose when we stop listening. In Ayede, the elders used to say that a village does not forget, even when the people do. The people of Ayede believed that the ancestors still walked among the living, not as spirits to fear, and not as forces looking for punishment, but as witnesses. They watched, they listened, they guided when they were remembered, and they stepped back when they were forgotten. Lami no longer believed in such things. She had left Ayede many years ago with dust on her slippers and impatience in her heart. The city had called her with promises of progress, opportunity, and freedom from what she believed were old and unnecessary traditions. In the city, people did not ask elders before making decisions. They signed papers. They trusted concrete, steel, and speed. Life in the city was not easy for Lamin, but it taught her many things. She struggled. She failed. She learned how to survive on her own. She learned how to make decisions without asking permission. And when the city finally became too loud, too expensive, and too cold toward her efforts, Lamin returned home with a suitcase, a tired heart, and the belief that she had outgrown village life. Ayede welcomed her quietly. There were no drums, no celebrations. People simply noticed that Lamin had returned. They greeted her politely, the way people greet someone who has been gone long enough to change, but not long enough to be forgotten. Her grandmother's house stood at the edge of the village, just as it always had. Or at least, it had stood. That year, the rainy season was heavier than usual. The rain fell for days without rest. One night, the earth became too weak to hold together. By morning, the mud walls of her grandmother's house had collapsed. The roof leaned dangerously, and the ground was scattered with broken memories. Lamin stood in front of the ruins, with her hands on her waist. She felt sadness, but she also felt relief. The house was old, too old, built in a time when people relied on mud, patience, and customs she no longer understood. To Lamin, it was not a tragedy, it was an opportunity. "I'll rebuild it properly," she said to herself. By properly, she meant the way the city had taught her. Cement blocks, straight walls, modern roofing. A house that rain could not destroy. A house that time would respect. Some elders noticed her plans. They watched as bags of cement arrived, along with iron rods and shiny roofing sheets that reflected the sun too brightly. A few elders approached Lamin carefully. "It is good that you are rebuilding," one of them said. "But have you spoken to—" "I know what I'm doing," Lamin replied calmly but firmly. "The house fell because it was old. I'm only making it stronger." The elders exchanged looks, then said nothing more. In Ayede, elders understood that some lessons could not be explained. They could only be lived. The rebuilding began quickly. Lamin supervised everything herself. Workers dug deep into the ground, breaking soil that had not been touched in many years. None of them noticed the small clay pot buried beneath the old foundation. It was plain and small, no marks, no symbols, nothing special to the eye. When the shovel hit it, the pot broke quietly. Its pieces were mixed with the soil and thrown away, forgotten before anyone knew it had ever been there. The new house rose in its place clean, modern, and strong. It stood taller than many houses around it. Its cement walls did not blend with the earth the way the old mud house had. People admired it. "It's beautiful," some said. "Yes," others agreed. "Very strong." Lamin felt proud. For the first time since returning home, she felt she had proven something to the village and to herself. The first sign that something was wrong was small. The food she cooked that night spoiled by morning. It was not rotten, but sour enough to be thrown away. Lamin blamed the heat. The next day, she received a call about a small job opportunity she had been hoping for. The call sounded promising. By evening, the opportunity disappeared without explanation. Lamin brushed it aside. Life was unpredictable. She knew that well. Then the dreams began. Every night, she dreamed of the old house as it once was. The mud walls stood again, cracked with age. In the middle sat an old woman, her back bent slightly, her face turned away. She never spoke. She only shook her head. Lamin woke up every morning feeling uneasy. Her chest felt heavy with a feeling she could not explain. She told herself it was stress, the difficulty of returning home after failure. During the day, small things continued to go wrong. Keys went missing. Simple tasks took too long. Conversations ended suddenly, as if people forgot what they were saying. Then her younger brother fell ill. One day, he was healthy and joking with her. The next day, he could not stand without pain. They took him to the clinic. Tests were done. Medicine was given. Nothing changed. The sickness did not grow worse. It simply stayed, like a question waiting for an answer. One evening, Lamin sat beside him, watching his uneven breathing. Fear crept into her heart, not loud fear, but quiet fear that comes when answers refuse to appear. That night, the old woman appeared in her dream again. This time, she was closer. Still silent, still shaking her head. Lamin woke suddenly, her heart racing. For the first time, she wondered if the village had been right about some things after all. Outside, the new cement house stood firm under the moonlight, strong, modern, and strangely cold. And beneath it, unseen and forgotten, something important was missing. When the elders finally came to Lamin's house, they did not arrive with anger. They arrived with quiet. That kind of quiet that comes when people are carrying something heavy and do not want to drop it. The elders sat in the shade under the big mango tree, their faces calm, their eyes attentive. They listened to Lamin's story without interrupting her city life, her struggles, her decision to rebuild the house, the strange events that followed, and her brother's illness. Lamin told the story with her hands, with her voice, with her pain. When she finished, the village fell silent. No one spoke for a long time. Then the oldest elder, Baba Akin, cleared his throat. "We have been watching," he said softly. Lamin felt her heart tighten. Watching what? Baba Akin looked at the ground, watching the house being rebuilt. Lamin nodded, trying to keep her expression steady. "Did you ask for permission?" Lamin answered honestly, because that was the kind of person she had become. "No." There was no harshness in Baba Akin's voice, only the weight of truth. "Then you did what you thought was right," he said. "But there are things in this village that are not only about right and wrong. They are about memory." He paused. Lamin waited. Baba Akin continued. "There was a time, long ago, when our people traveled through drought and famine. They had no protection from sickness, no modern medicines, no machines to build houses. Their only hope was gratitude." He looked at Lamin's brother, lying on the mat inside the house, his breathing slow and uneven. "So they made a promise," Baba Akin said, "a promise they buried." He raised his hand and pointed toward the new foundation of Lamin's house, where the ground had been disturbed. "You have built a strong house," he said, "but you have built it over a promise that was meant to stay buried." Lamin frowned. "What promise?" Baba Akin sighed. "This village has always believed that protection is not given for free. It is earned, remembered, and honored." He continued. "The clay pot under the old foundation was not juju. It was not a curse. It was not a spell." Lamin's stomach tightened. "What was it then?" she asked. Baba Akin's voice was gentle but firm. "It was a symbol of gratitude." Lamin blinked, confused. "A symbol," she repeated. Baba Akin nodded. "Long before your grandmother was born, before even her grandmother, our ancestors suffered. They lost children, they lost crops, they lost entire families to the cruelty of nature. But they also received help." He leaned forward. "Not from spirits," he said, "but from each other." He looked at Lamin and spoke slowly, as if he were teaching a child who had not yet learned the ways of the village. They had a tradition. When a family was saved, they would honor the sacrifice of the ones who made it possible. They would bury a pot under the foundation of a new home, filled with offerings. Not to buy protection, but to remember the debt. He paused again, letting the words settle. And the ancestors, Baba Akin said, are not angry. They are simply silent when they are not remembered. Lamin stared at him, feeling a cold sense of understanding. So, you mean, she said quietly, that my brother is sick because I didn't remember? Baba Akin shook his head. No, he said. Your brother is sick because the protection that was once given to this family was forgotten. He looked at Lamin with a softness that made her feel both ashamed and seen. You did not offend the ancestors, he said. You offended memory. Lamin's throat tightened. Memory? She whispered. Baba Akin nodded. Your grandmother built her house from the mud that was in this land. She built it with the knowledge that her ancestors had carried. She built it with respect for what came before. The pot was buried not as a curse, but as a promise that the family would never forget. He looked at Lamin's brother again, and his voice grew quieter. When the pot was broken, the promise was broken too. Lamin's eyes filled with tears. So what happens now? She asked, her voice shaking. What can we do? Baba Akin's gaze moved slowly across the village, as if he were searching for the right words. We cannot undo what has been done, he said, but we can remember. We can rebuild not only a house, but a connection. He turned his gaze back to Lamin. You must rebuild the pot, he said. Lamin shook her head. But it was broken. The pieces were thrown away. Baba Akin nodded. Yes, but the pot is not the point. The point is the act of gratitude, the act of remembering, the act of offering thanks for what has been given. Lamin swallowed hard. And what about my brother? She asked. Baba Akin's eyes softened. The illness is a sign, he said, not of punishment, but of absence. He paused, and the wind moved through the trees like a quiet breath. Without protection, life becomes heavy, he said, and when life becomes heavy, the body feels it. He looked at Lamin. But if you remember, if you rebuild the connection, then the ancestors may return. Lamin's heart beat faster. How do I rebuild it? She asked. Baba Akin smiled gently. You start by learning, he said. You start by listening. You start by asking. You start by admitting that you do not know everything. He stood up slowly, and the others followed his movement, as if they were part of the same breath. We will help you, Baba Akin said. But you must understand that this is not about magic. It is about humility. My lovely listeners, do you think Lami will get the help she needs? Well, the story is not over yet. Let's continue. Baba Akin led Lamin and the elders into the village center, where the old shrine stood beneath the shade of a massive Iroko tree. It was not a shrine of fear, but of respect. The village gathered there when they needed guidance, not when they needed to be frightened. Lamin stood at the edge, watching the elders prepare a small offering. They did not bring herbs or bones or objects of power. They brought food, yams, palm oil, kola nuts, and a pot of water. They brought what the family had, and they offered it with sincerity. The elders spoke softly, not to summon spirits, but to speak to the memory of those who had come before. Lamin listened, her heart heavy. She understood, for the first time, that the village's customs were not meant to trap people in the past. They were meant to keep the past alive in the present. That night, she sat beside her brother and held his hand. She spoke to him quietly, telling him stories she had never told him before, stories of their grandmother's childhood, of the way she laughed, of the way she loved the village even when she left. As she spoke, Lamin felt something shift inside her. Not like magic. Like a door opening. Not a loud door, but a small one that had been closed for years. The next morning, the food did not spoil. It tasted fresh. It smelled normal. It did not turn sour overnight. The day after, Lamin received a message about a job opportunity. It was not the one she had lost earlier, but it was better. It was stable. It was something she could build on. She smiled, but she did not believe in miracles. She believed in something else. She believed in memory. The elders continued to visit, guiding her gently. They taught her the old songs, the old stories, the ways of respect that she had dismissed as outdated. She listened. She learned. She apologized silently to the grandmother's house that she had rebuilt without asking. Lamin understood, at last, that tradition was not something to outgrow. It was something to carry. One evening, she dreamed again. This time, the old woman sat in the ruins of the mud house, but she was not shaking her head. She was smiling. Lamin woke up with tears in her eyes, not fear, but relief. She had not awakened anger. She had awakened remembrance. The ancestors had not punished her. They had simply stepped back when she forgot. And when she remembered, they returned quietly, like the return of a long-lost family member. The lesson I want to leave you with is this. Tradition is not a trap. It is a memory that protects us. When we stop remembering, we lose more than old customs. We lose the guidance of those who came before us. Progress is not about forgetting the past. It is about carrying it forward with respect. And when we forget, we do not awaken anger. We awaken absence.